Good afternoon, everyone. My name is J.J. Bernabei. I'm with the Tri-State Medical Group. I'm a pharmacist, and I was going to talk to you a little bit about some over-the-counter medications for your babies and try to give you a little bit of advice on some of the products that you may find yourself choosing for them. The first thing I wanted to tell you is that no matter what your background is, nobody is really a better mom or a better judge of your kids than you. So a lot of the times I'll have moms ask me questions, and then I'll ask them a question, and I'll say, well, what do you think? Like, what do you think? Do you think your child is going to get better, or do you think it's something that needs medical attention? And they always kind of look at me a little funny, but the thing is, I've had 3 kids. And I know my kids. They're as different as night and day. And I know when one of them's hurting a little bit worse than they should, where I need to call the doctor. Now, there's some steadfast rules that I've always followed, and I would like you to follow these. When your kid is less than 1 year old, call your doctor. If they have a fever, call your doctor. Okay, let them know that how your child's feeling, and this is why. This is a simple way to think of it. When your children are that young, things can go south very bad, but things are very trendy. So when you call your doctor and say, my 6-month-old is sick, there's a really good chance he had a dozen other kids in there that week with the same set of circumstances. And he'll be able to tell you, this is what you want to do. This is pretty much normal. We've seen this over the last couple of weeks. Or he might say, there's some bad stuff going around. So I'd like for your baby to come in, and I'd like to examine him or examine her. So, the idea of saying, well, this happened with my other kid when he was 6 months old. So I think I can handle this. I'm telling you, I'm a pharmacist, and they say that we're like medication experts. If my kid is less than 1 year old, I'm calling the doctor, and I'm getting some real-time advice from my physician. So that's one of the take-homes I'd like you to take home today. So the other thing I'd like you to think of is that if anybody has more than one kid, that thing about you panic with the first one, and then the second one doesn't bother you, and the third one is a piece of cake when it comes to handling terrible episodes in their health life. There couldn't be anything more truer than that. So the thing is that what are some rules that you can follow with your children when it comes to, say, pain and fever? So how comfortable they are is a really big deal. So you take your child's temperature and say it's over 99.5. Okay, that's considered a temperature. Okay, you may have one child that has a temperature of 100, and you can't tell the difference between when they have a fever and when they don't, and you may have another child that it really wreaks havoc on their demeanor and their mood and how they carry themselves, and they may be really sick with 100 temperature. So what are the things that we can do at home when your child has a temperature, and they can and you can treat it over the counter? You can treat it with 2 items, either Motrin or Tylenol. Those are the brand names. The generic names are ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Now here's a little bit of a take home. When we look in the pharmacy, or when we look in the grocery store, and we look at the cough and cold aisle, okay, there are a million things that say pain reliever on them, okay? There are 3 things in there for pain. It's either Tylenol, Motrin, or aspirin. I don't care if there's 500 different line items. There's only 3 pain medications in all of them. And it can be confusing. I mean, for example, we had a product not too long ago. Everyone kind of knows what Claritin is. It's for allergies. Well, they came up with a Claritin for sinus pain. Well, it was Tylenol, but it said on the box it was Claritin. That's how confusing it can be. So kind of keep that in mind. Make sure that you read labels. But here's one of the take homes I want to tell you that I think is confusing for anyone. So this is Tylenol. This is Tylenol drops, and this is Tylenol liquid. The only difference is the concentration. So when you look at the ingredients, it will tell you that in 5 mLs of this dropper, that there is 160 milligrams of Tylenol. Okay, so there is only 2 fluid ounces in here. It has a dropper, but a teaspoon of this is the same as a teaspoon of this. So even though this is drops and this is liquid, they're the exact same strength. And you say, okay, well that's a good rule to follow. It's going to be the exact same strength. That's not true. So when you look at Motrin, okay, the drops are a different strength than the liquid. So if you were to give the same amount of both of these in a dropper or in a say a measuring dose spoon, you're giving them the exact same amount. Okay, so you figure it out and then you give them what you're supposed to. In this, they're different. This one, for example, it's 100 milligrams, I think. Yeah, 100 milligrams per teaspoon, okay? This is 50 milligrams per ml. So this is much more concentrated than this is. So you can see they're the same colors, okay? Now you're saying, okay, I get that, and I don't think I'll make that mistake. But think about grandma, who you put in charge of your child this afternoon and said, make sure you give them a teaspoon of the Motrin. Okay, what if you have this one up there for your one that's a year old? You have this one up there for the one that's 5 years old. Okay, so that's the take home, that this isn't as simple as it may seem. So I would tell you that here's a couple of rules that me and my wife used to follow. So my wife is a pharmacist. And I'm a pharmacist, so you'd figure that we would never screw up giving our kids meds. That's not true. We screwed it up all the time. So we got a little system. When we were giving our, and here's the thing, you're not going to give your child like one dose and they're going to be hunky-dory, all better and off to the races. This may be something that over the next couple of days, you may be giving them Tylenol or you may be giving them Motrin. So we used to keep a little a notepad. And no matter who gave it to him, we wrote it down. Because believe me, you get up in the morning, you can hear your kid coughing, you know he's uncomfortable, you give him a teaspoon of this, you go to work, next thing you know, the wife gets up and she says, hey, I got to make sure I give him the medicine. Well, if you write it down, it kind of helps you remember and you don't make that mistake. So that's a little bit of a tip that you can use. I think that you never want to get, everyone has a different idea about making your kids responsible, right? I think as long as they're children, you want to give their medication to them for 2 reasons. Number one, you want to make sure that you're giving them what you want to give them and what the plan is. So one of the questions that comes across our desk all the time is, should we teach our children to give themselves their own medication? And there's a place for that at some point in time, but when it comes to a child who's say 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, give the medication to them for a couple of reasons. You want to make sure that it's what you want to give them, and you want there to be this level of seriousness when it comes to medication in general. You know, when you tell your child, go ahead and get a couple of Motrin, because you're old enough to swallow a pill now, go ahead and get 2 of them in the orange bottle and go ahead and take it. Believe it or not, you're kind of telling them it's not really dangerous, it's really safe for you to do that. And as an adult, we can handle that, I think. But as a child, you really have a hard time differentiating between, if you were to take that the wrong way, it could be a bad thing. So you just put that level of safety there, and you make sure you're the one to give it to your children. Let them know, do not take medicine unless I give it to you. And believe it or not, there's going to be times in your child's life where they're going to be taking some medicine. They're going to be taking a little bit more than you could imagine at times. So to have a little bit of control over it, I think is very important. One of the things that we're going to give away today to anybody who's listening to this video is we're going to give you a chance to use this or to win this thermometer. It's an infrared thermometer. You may not have thought they were popular a year ago. They're popular now. They're accurate, and I think that that every household could use one. So certainly pay attention. There's going to be a way that you have a chance to win that. Now, the last thing that we'll go over when it comes to Tylenol and Motrin is the simple question, which one do I give? Okay, I want to tell you this. Believe it or not, at one time, Motrin was prescription only. If your 2-year-old or 3-year-old had a fever and Tylenol wasn't working, and you wanted to give them something stronger, there was nothing to give them. You had to get a prescription for Motrin. Well, then it became over the counter. And then there were all these different recommendations on what you should do. When do I give Motrin? When do I give Tylenol? I can tell you as a pharmacist, they kind of work the same. When the temperature's a little higher, Motrin works a little bit better. What I can tell you as a parent of 3 kids, Motrin works great. It works so much better as a fever reducer than Tylenol. It's crazy. Okay, so I always gave my children Tylenol, or I always gave my children Motrin when they had a fever. It worked, it brought it down. So you might have heard the idea of alternating them. Give Tylenol one time, give Motrin the next time. All that does, that's just a recipe to get confused. Okay, either give your kid Tylenol or give them Motrin. If Tylenol works, I think that that's great. If Tylenol doesn't work, give them Motrin. Okay, they're both very safe. The idea that Tylenol is safer than Motrin really is kind of old school thinking from years ago when Motrin needed a prescription because we didn't have all the studies that showed that it was safe in kids and that kind of thing. That's not the case anymore. So as a pharmacist / parent, I think that Motrin does work better, and I don't like the alternating method. I think that I know that if me and my wife tried to do that with our kids, we would get confused. So I think that either choose one or the other, and when in doubt, you think you need something a little bit more effective, choose the Motrin. So one thing I'll tell you, we have 3 pharmacies in our group. We have Tri-State Pharmacy, which is located at the Weirton Medical Center. We have Follansbee Pharmacy, located on Main Street in Follansbee. And we have Value Leader Pharmacy, located in Wintersville. And we have pharmacists there all the time that are available to ask your questions. And certainly you can call us on the phone. We have our website, and you can ask questions from there. And it was a pleasure spending time with you today. Thank you.